I'm Val Landis, Dr. Val Landis. I'm a physician in Larimar County. I need some clarification of exactly where a patient can get a legal certification. We have so many questions, doctors that are doing this. I have no problems with patients coming to my office. I can do a home visit as a physician, but I'm being bombarded by dispensaries that are still trying to get some of the doctor money. And they're saying, we have a separate little office 2 doors from our dispensary. My wife pays the lease. Come to my place. I'll give you 50 patients a week if you'll come to my place. I've got, growers that are telling me, if you will get you into a mountain town and I'll give you 50 patients a month, we'll do it all on a Saturday or a Holiday Inn. And besides, all my patients need a 50 plant count, by the way. And I'm hearing about doctors that are doing this by Skype and by webcams. They're in Larimar County right now. There's some of my competition that's giving licenses in Augusta Springs and Rifle, Colorado, and various places over a webcam by a nurse filling out everything, and then they use their little laptop with their webcam and seeing the doctor in their office, and then they come back, the doctor signs it and mails it to them. I see in all forms of this, and I want to protect my patients, but at the same time, I see no teeth in the dog that you have that's supposed to be regulating this for the bad doctors. I see good doctors that are getting out of this because they say, I don't know the answers and no one can tell me, and everybody has a lawyer. And they all say, it's okay to do it this way. And we need to have some clarifications of exactly where the patient can get their appropriate card.
Doctor, I've got a couple thoughts about that. I don't think Department of Revenue deals with the physicians, so they may not be the ones to answer that question. At this point, the requirements of Senate Bill 109, which is the bill that regulates the doctor-patient relationship, say that a doctor can no longer take compensation from a dispensary, a caregiver, or a center, or anyone who's in this business. That's a significant change from the way it was before. It also requires that you cannot share office space. Now, you mentioned the office space 2 suites down. If the dispensary is the landlord and you are paying the landlord for that space, I mean, this is a case-by-case analysis, but that may be acceptable. In terms of remote doctor-patient visits, I don't think that's ever been permitted. The Constitution always required a bona fide doctor-patient relationship. Even though you can get your OxyContin with a telephone call, and you don't even have to talk to a doctor to get that, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for those who need it. Marijuana is different. I believe there is a requirement of an in-person meeting, at least one, between doctor and patient. So I don't think the Skype or internet-based things, unfortunately, because as you mentioned, you need to make house calls sometimes. These are handicapped, home-based people, and you're just going to have to do that. I think you're going to have to meet the patient at least once face-to-face. So I would not recommend doing the internet thing. But in terms of hard and fast rules on a number of the other questions, a lot of that is still open to interpretation. I do differ somewhat from Dr. Bregman. I think the elevated plant count recommendations are legally cognizable. The 2 bills, 1284 and Senate Bill 109, actually mention elevated plant count recommendations specifically, and that's one of the advantages of these bills in the sense that they clear up a previous gray area of the law. My world is in trial courts, and when I have a doctor's recommendation for elevated plant counts in a criminal jury trial, that's good to go, usually, because it is the prosecution that has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And if I've got a physician saying this person needs X plants, that's usually good. Of course, the objective is to avoid the criminal jury trial, and that is not the position you want to be in. So be careful with the elevated plant count. know that the health department is looking over you, but you're the medical professional. If you believe it's warranted and you can back it up and you think the patient needs it, I think you're almost obligated to put that in there if you really believe it and the patient is asking for it. Does that answer all your questions?
Mainly except the satellite type clinics.
Satellite clinics. Whether you have to run the practice out of your regular clinic, I would say the answer is no. Just with the proviso, though, that you cannot use space provided to you, given to you by the dispensary for free. You've got to pay. You've got to pay for the space, and you can't be compensated by the dispensary or caregiver for either signing or not signing a recommendation. You really can't get any money from the caregiver or dispensary anymore. That is going to change. We may challenge that. We may be successful. We'll see what happens with that. But right now, you've got to eliminate the connection between you and your caregiver or dispensary or center.
And from doctors, let me just add, from the doctor's position about the group that has been meeting, these issues are very black and white for us, okay? The Skype issue is illegal, okay? Anybody who does it we consider a rogue doctor. It shouldn't be. It should be open to discussion, though, for the rural area, but that's somewhere down the line. Skype is no. The patient who has to go to understand the law, and the doctor, as you telling the patient, you should recommend to the patient, you go to a doctor that is adhering to the law. The law is the bona fide doctor-patient relationship. The laws are on the web. They can read it there and go there. So they're clear about certain things, and those things have to be and should be followed. If there's any sort of gray area with it or any sort of question, then the patient has to, from the advice of what they read, as well as if they have a question, they have to move ahead and ask more questions about it. But the state itself is, and from my impression when I speak to the state, they're not necessarily going after revocation of licenses from rogue doctors. They'll go after the doctor, but they'll not necessarily go after the patient. So I tell patients myself, you're here, you're being seen by a doctor who understands the laws as they understand, and knows shifting sands, and that just goes by. That's how we do it.
So you're saying a doctor cannot go to another town 100 miles away from his office and see a group of patients in a satellite clinic on a one-time basis?
Oh, I think yeah, a doctor can definitely do that. A doctor can go to Fruta or any other town and rent a hotel room and see and be advised by the ethics of what the law is intended, and 50 patients are signed up, and let's say a grower says or a dispensary says, I have 50 some odd patients for you to see or for renewals or things like that. I would have no problem seeing those patients. I'm not getting paid by the dispensary. I'm getting paid by the patient, and I'm evaluating the patients according to the law and making my recommendations. If it's a flash recommendation where the dispensary is saying, okay, we're going to give you these 50 and we expect 50 approvals, then that's not the way it should work. But as far as traveling around, doing things for people rurally or even locally here in Denver, I see no problem whatsoever as long as they're abiding by the ethics and what the rules are saying, and they meet the qualifying conditions.
And is the grower allowed to pay for the doctor visit?
I have no idea, and it hasn't come up, and maybe the question is no. So therefore the answer is no. These are what we're doing.
You can't pay the doctor. You could pay the patient. You could not pay the doctor.
So we're getting our money. I'm getting paid by the evaluation company that I work for, or as an independent contractor, or if I have my own independent contractor and has gone out and the dispensary says I have patients for you, and then the financial arrangement is myself and the patient. That's where we're going.
I think we...
Thank you.